right, so how to increase your sensitivity and acuity so that you can feel tonic herbs and or tea and or whatever supplements that you might be taking in a much more tangible and dense kind of way. And really, we should say from the very beginning, sometimes there are people that are just a bit more sensitive naturally. Sometimes there are people that are just a bit more insensitive naturally. And each kind of has their pros and cons. For example, sometimes people can be so hypersensitive that they have trouble really functioning in the world because they're so bombarded and overstimulated. On the flip side, people are so dense that maybe sometimes they don't see obvious connections between their actions and the results and the consequences or things they do and how that makes them feel. So in just those two simple examples, neither one is good or bad, right or wrong, better or worse. Just really understanding the basic almost characteristic that each of us may or may not have. However, there is hope because we can cultivate skills, we can cultivate sensitivity. So for me, what I used to do when I very first started taking tonic herbs is the first step was I had already been meditating every day in the morning for 30 to 60 minutes without fail. And that was already starting to lay a foundation of actually getting my mind into my body and starting to just sit and pay attention to how I felt and how things were affecting me. How what I was thinking affected my breathing, or certain tension patterns, or my emotional state affected these things, just laying that foundation. And then I took that and then started consuming herbs, sitting and meditating, and then noticing similar things. And that sort of planted a seed, and over time, through discipline, through practice, that was really able to allow me to feel things in a way which for me is sensitive and rewarding. Now there's people that are way ahead of me that are way more sensitive and way more in tune, and that's fine. Like I said, it's a spectrum and it's a process of learning and growth and development. So a few things to look at is, first thing would be diet. Sometimes people are really insensitive because their diet is not good. What is not good? That's a huge question, a huge topic, but for the sake of this, we could say a lot of processed foods, things that aren't even food necessarily, aggressively spiced things, aggressively fried things, overcooked things, basically really heavy foods, fried foods, oily, greasy. Really the general term that I'm trying to describe is things that are really a bit aggressive and overstimulating. For example, a bowl of French fries is going to be more stimulating than a bowl of cucumbers, just to paint a kind of picture. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that we should be like health freaks or basically orthorexic, not at all, but basically starting to look at what we eat, how that affects our palate, because basically if we're eating aggressively spiced foods, a lot of onion and garlic, we're drinking alcohol, we're drinking coffee, a lot of fried food, a lot of meat, a lot of cheese, a lot of dairy, a lot of bread, a lot of things which are very aggressive and probably inflammatory to our system, then our capacity to feel teas and tonic herbs and other subtle things is really going to be undermined, really diminished. Likewise, if our digestive system is just not functioning as a result, that's also going to be quite a big hindrance. So that's one thing to look at, and that's something to really consider and reflect on and start to just pay attention to. Because it's like, for example, if I'm going to have a tea session and I go eat Mexican food, and I'm eating guacamole and there's a bunch of raw onions in the guacamole, well, this tea session that I'm going to have after that is going to be completely, like, almost not even worth it from a flavor perspective, because my tongue will be just coated with onions and grease and salt from the tortilla chips. But let's say I have something just a bit more neutral, a bit more simple, then I'll be able to taste and get a lot more out of it. So that's basically one thing. The second thing is, like I hinted at for my first example, is having practices that actually encourage us to get our mind into our body, and things that we can do actually on a regular basis as disciplines, as practices. And really, if we start to combine these things together, give it enough time, and actually invest time and energy in ourselves and seeing the connections between things in our experience, then it's likely that we may become a bit more sensitive. Because if our general approach to life is that we have nothing to do with it, or that everything that happens is someone else's fault, or we have just an extremely, disempowered, disjointed, and kind of divided view of ourselves and the world, then we're not really laying a foundation to start to see connections and relations and really feel those things in a tangible way. So I would say, without going into too much other crazy detail, those are a couple things that we can start looking at and start working on to actually develop a bit more sensitivity. And also sometimes, the last thing I'll say is it could be a quality thing in terms of what we're consuming. It could also be that this is not really the right thing for us. For example, I have my 65, 75-year-old wild ginseng extract that I've sold on my Hyperion Private Reserve. I take it, I really feel it. I would say the majority of people that I have met and let try it have tasted it, have taken it, and be like, whoa, there's really something going on here. However, there are other people that I've met, and maybe I'm in conversation with them, and I can already tell this person is not gonna feel anything from this. Maybe it's a certain aspect of their, maybe not really in their body, we could say, they're not connected to their experience, or they exist in a purely kind of cerebral way, meaning they're like, oh, this is amazing because it's this old, and it has this facts, and it has this characteristics, and it has ginsenosides, and it has saponins, and saponins modulate these functions and plug into these receptor sites, so da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Amazing. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't really care past a conversational basis, because those all things can be in place, but if you don't actually have a connection to it or an experience or really feel it or have something come of it, then I don't know. Like, for example, if you ate food and you didn't feel satisfied, why are you really gonna keep eating that food? Or you eat that food and it makes you feel awful, why are you gonna keep eating it? Big question, big broad stroke, I know. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes maybe if I give a person the ginseng, they're not even gonna connect with it, or maybe it's just not the right thing for them at that time. Maybe they just need like a strong cup of coffee with cream and 2 sugars, and that's really going to be the best tonic herb for them. That's fine. Nothing against coffee. I have a latte every now and again, and for me it's really a extremely strong experience in terms of the flavor, the aroma, the way it makes me feel, the effects, the way it changes my mind state, my emotional state, the way it reorients me to life. It's a big, profound experience. Granted, when the coffee is actually really good quality and it's made really well, the shots are poured right, everything about it has been done actually well and correctly, and I'm in the mood for it, it's boom, can be amazing. However, if I didn't know anything about coffee and I showed up at the shop, had a latte, took 1 sip, and was like, oh, this is terrible, you don't know what you're doing, this is the worst thing I've ever had, how dare you do this, what a ripoff, what a scam, you're an asshole. I'm not really in an informed position to be able to make those claims, because bluntly, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that's kind of what a lot of people do sometimes. Maybe it's And there's nothing against them, because it's like, well, I have this amazing pour tea. But if you don't know anything about it, you've never had it, you don't know what to look for, and maybe you just ate Mexican food and drank a beer and drank a coffee, and now you're gonna drink this. Well, compared to all of those things that came before it, this pour tea doesn't stand a chance. Not a chance at all. Likewise, you wanna eat a healthy meal, right? You're gonna eat your lunch, it's gonna be organic superfoods, locally grown, nutrient dense, everything. But then while you're eating it, you're staring at your phone, you're calling, you're texting, you're on YouTube, you're looking at a magazine, you're talking to someone, you're stressed, you're worrying about what's gonna happen. That superfood meal does not stand a chance at all against what you are doing. So I'm trying to illustrate a couple of big examples, implicitly and kind of explicitly, but hopefully you can kind of get what I'm saying a bit and you see a larger context for being sensitive to herbs and foods and actually enjoying your life in a deeper, more enriched fashion, because that's really, in some sense, I think what it comes down to and what I'm kind of talking about. So anywho, thanks for watching this video, and I'll talk to you soon.